We've also been talking about machetes and knife crime, and that's going to be my first question to Joseph Monson, our legal in just a moment. Machetes, they are commonplace in the conservation field. They are used daily along with sickles, billhooks, scythes, etc. to control reeds and manage the environment. You're right. I hope there will be an exception in the law for legitimate use of such tools. That's from Stephen in York. And Stephen, right on that question, we've got the right person to answer that. Joseph Monson is a lawyer and broadcaster. And until we sort things out, he's going to be joining me on the phone right now. Joseph, thank you for joining me. And I want to pick up that question that we got from Stephen in York. This new law about new zombie knife police powers to tackle violence, is it just a headline, or is there really is there really going to be a change in the law?
I think that's the fundamental question. Good afternoon, Tricia. Good afternoon, everybody listening. I think we've had a week of tough on crime, haven't we? We've had these government announcements regarding sentencing of murderers and people who are going to be dragged into court to somehow make sentencing hearings more effective, although people being dragged into court and then disrupting sentencing is probably no good for victims' families, although we're, of course, incensed in the Letby case of her refusal and others, Dale Cregan, Cashman, etc., to attend. The practicalities are much more difficult. And, of course, the government is desperate to avoid proper analysis of what happened in that terrible Letby case that allowed structurally for all of that to go on for so long, because it might reflect back on them, perhaps more on that.
Yeah, I want to look into that. I want to look into that a little bit later in more depth, Joseph. And you're right. There has been a week on crime, hasn't it? About tougher sentencing and what have you. We're going to go through some of those things now on this knife crime thing.
Well, absolutely, Tricia. Well, there's very, very little of substance here. What you see is a photo op with Rishi Sunak. Great use of, by the way, of our supreme leader's time when we're a country that's facing various crises at the time, looking at zombie knives in front of, which are already offensive weapons, already highly illegal, and with mandatory minimum sentences in many cases, with another person who's clearly got a lot of time on his hands, the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, but no new actual laws that relate to the use of zombie knives. Instead, a four-year maximum sentence for the sale of a zombie knife. Well, hang on a minute. Zombie knives are, generally speaking, you can't buy them anywhere, so no legitimate in the UK, so no legitimate company is going to be selling them regardless. It's not as if we've got an addiction among our youth to zombie knives like vapes or cigarettes, which of course it's legal to buy, that they need to regulate it in terms of people on the front end. People buy these weapons abroad on the internet. This is the big loophole that, I'm not being party political, this is the big loophole that's immediately been identified in the Labour response to this. Penalties on sale are utterly meaningless. This is actually about division, fear, optics. It's about a photo.
So Joseph, but here's the thing.
About losing the next election.
If it's a foreign company selling these knives and you can put all the laws in place you want to, they're not subject to British law.
Well, you can commit an offence abroad, but I mean, it creates not just jurisdictional issues, Tricia, but practical ones too. And often these are things that are legal to buy or sell in that particular country. Now, I have to say, the police are very good, along with various delivery services and probably other agencies like HMRC, the organisation, or Customs and Excise, the organisations that deal with that deal with monitoring post in and out of the country. They're good at identifying this stuff. They're good at dealing with it. Often people buy, for example, some type of item for home protection, that not a zombie knife, but something that they won't necessarily know is illegal on a website that's very marketed to UK people, etc. But this is, the knife crime problem is not about zombie knives. the kids, the young people carrying knives are not carrying massive zombie knives and machetes for the most part. And I don't want to diminish anybody who's suffered an attack in that regard, but the statistics probably don't lean towards that. We've talked about it before, Tricia. This problem is a social one. It's exploded in the context of cuts to police. Police are not enough of a presence on streets, and the kids have been the first people to realise that with regard to that policing of the streets, the Emperor is not wearing any clothes. And of course, those are the kids that have grown up having been Sure Start and other programs post-2007. We're all in this together.
Disappeared.
And of course, 10, 12 years, 13 years, we've got a knife crime epidemic. Tricia, who would have thought it?
I know. Well, don't even get me started on Sure Start. As you know, the demise of Sure Start has created so many social problems. I don't know when or which government is going to wake up to the fact that unless you support families when, you know, they've got babies, unless you give parents some help in these tough times, we reap the benefit somewhere down the line. Now, that question that we had from Stephen in York, that a lot of these knives and what have you, these machetes or are used in conservation work.
Yeah.
How do they... So there's got to be some kind of exception in the law for legitimate use of such tools.
It's either a reasonable excuse type language in the legislation if you're talking about something being labelled specifically an offensive weapon, or if it's not going to be named specifically as that type of. But if it is named specifically, then you can name those specific reasons. Now, of course, in some cases, for example, with handguns and targets shooting, after the terrible Dunblane massacre, it was decided that people who were involved in that sport would have to just find something else to do. I think it's quite likely that there'll be some type of provision, either specifically or a general one saying reasonable excuse, or if you can show that you have a specific connection to an industry or whatever.